What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another live post-game show on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com, and I am joined by none other than the Michael Darcy from KC Sports Report. And we're here to discuss the Kansas City Chiefs' 27-20 victory over the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. A nice road win for the Kansas City Chiefs to move to 4-1 on the season, but we have plenty to talk about in this game because there were some things to like and there were some things not to like. But Michael and I are here to break it down. But before anything, Michael, how are you doing tonight?
You know, I'm doing okay. As I just discussed on the Bleacher Report post-game show, there's a lot of Chiefs fans that are freaking out, and I understand why they would do that. But a win is a win in the NFL. A road win against an NFC opponent, I'm going to take that. And it wasn't pretty. It went down to the very end of the game, but man, the Chiefs just always do this. So I'm just happy to get a win. And as I said earlier, I'd rather be 4-1 winning ugly than 1-4 having a lot of pretty losses.
Yeah, man. Like, what I've realized over the years watching this team is that the Chiefs are never going to be the sexy regular season team. At least at this point, with all the winning that they've done, everyone just kind of wants to pick somebody else other than the Chiefs to win it all. And the Chiefs aren't really too concerned about winning with style points. And even though the Vikings are not very good, the Chiefs only beat them by a touchdown. But like I said, the Chiefs are not a sexy regular season team. They aren't going to go out there and blow teams out like the Dolphins or the 49ers. And a lot of people are going to be all over those teams, and that's fine. The Chiefs are going to try to skid past the regular season, and then they'll try to turn it on in the postseason, assuming that there is a second year for this team to go into. But, Michael, I can't help but feel like a win is a win, and I don't want to get too down about the Chiefs after this game, but they just felt off the entire game. Lack of execution, just lot left to be desired on offense in particular, which we'll talk about plenty because it's been the concern with this team so far this year in 2023. But yeah, man, a win is a win, but it definitely felt off.
It definitely felt off. And I think that, we are accustomed to, winning and, at least putting up points offensively. I think for so long, our offense has had to carry the load for a defense that's been middle of the pack. And that's just not the case this year. This defense is top 10. I think they're like sixth or fifth in the league. Like, that is something that we're not accustomed to. So our offense not having to carry the full load is something that Chiefs fans aren't really used to. And I guess I kind of realize that as well, is that our defense is playing so well that our offense doesn't have to carry the entire load like they've always had to do. So I think that's a reason to be optimistic. And I also think that, I don't know where you fall on this, but I think the Chiefs offense is going to figure it out. It's just going to take some time. They've gone through dry spells in the past. I mentioned 2021 as an example when they beat teams like the Giants and the Packers, but they were really ugly wins, and the offense put up like 17 to 20 points. And we were kind of just like, what is going on with this Chiefs team? They figured it out and went in the AFC Championship game and lost in overtime. So I don't think that this offensive slight is anything to be concerned about. But I also don't think that, this offense is going to be the same that it's been in years prior.
My only pushback on that is that offense that you're referring to that started out slow and didn't look all that great, like in 2021 against the Packers and the Cowboys. That offense had Tyreek Hill on it.
Yeah.
This one does not. And you knew we were going to be watching the receivers today, and I feel like that's an appropriate place to start is the wide receivers. You knew we were going to be watching them today. Entering this game, the Minnesota Vikings had the worst pass defense in the NFL of any team. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. By the numbers, the Vikings had the worst pass defense in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers Well, I'd say they actually had a solid second half, and we saw like Rasheed Rice emerge. And, Justin Watson had a huge catch, and they put together just enough. They strung together enough plays for this team to win the game, but still a lot left to be desired. As I said, their leading receiver was Justin Watson, who continues to be the Chiefs' leading wide receiver for the entire season. Who would have thought that through 5 weeks in the 2023 NFL season, Justin Watson would lead the Kansas City Chiefs in receiving yards? And yeah, I think we were a little bit harsh on Justin Watson coming into the year and like during preseason and stuff. And he deserves credit for performing as well as he has, but he cannot be your number one receiver. It's a joke. Uh, I mean, Justin Watson, really, but 2 catches for 56 yards from Justin Watson. Rasheed Rice had 4 catches for 33 yards. Rasheed Rice definitely started to show something there in the second half. Had a touchdown today as well and looked really good. I think he had like 2 catches very close together on that drive, the same one that he had the touchdown. And both of them, he flashed particularly well. Justin Ross even got in on some action, 2 catches for 28 yards. I actually thought Kadarius Toney had a solid game too. 5 receptions for 26 yards. Not a super big game from him, but doing a little bit here and there to move the chains for the Chiefs. And then, sorry, I have to go far down the list to actually see his name. Sky Moore is a guy that I was wanting to talk about today too. So we're 5 weeks into Sky Moore's second season in the NFL. He has 9 catches for 123 yards. Today, he had 2 catches for 11 yards, which, he might as well not even have been out there. And that's basically 3-0 burger performances from Sky Moore in 5 games through the 2023 season. And actually, if I look this up, and I know, Michael, you probably saw that play today from George Pickens of
Was
the
watching
Pittsburgh
it
Steelers.
live.
Yep. Well, today, just versus the Ravens, he had 6 catches for 130 yards. Sky Moore for the entire season has 123 yards. And it just, I know people get tired of bringing it up between these two guys, but he was just such the obvious pick, man. Why did they not take him? But kind of what I was getting to with bringing up Sky Moore and his performance, like this again was the worst pass defense in the NFL, and just nothing, man. Can't get open, can't make a play. I mean, I tweeted it on Show Me Football. I don't know if you saw it or not, but like I'm pretty much there, man. Like I'm afraid that Sky Moore might just be a bust.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to turn into anything that he's not going to be like an all-pro level player. At this point, we're just asking for him to get like 500 yards a season, be like MVS. And MVS, I mean, he blew a touchdown today too. So there was definitely instances where you just had wide receivers that didn't do their job and they just didn't, follow through. I think Sky Moore even stopped running one of his routes. Like when you got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you never stop running. You run until the play is over, until somebody's on the ground and the ball's gone. With Patrick Mahomes, that's just unacceptable. One thing that I want to mention really quickly, you mentioned like, why didn't we draft George Pickens over Sky Moore? I think about that a lot. And my buddy actually pointed out something that I hadn't really thought about, that at what point do you kind of blame the offensive weapons on Patrick Mahomes? Patrick Mahomes wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He wanted Sky Moore. He wanted Rasheed Rice. I'm not saying that, Patrick Mahomes is a bad judge of talent, but when he is lobbied to get each and every single one of those guys, and right now 2 of the 3 of those guys suck, you can't, you know what I mean? And listen, I can understand why, from a general manager standpoint, Brett Veach wasting a pick every year to keep our franchise star quarterback happy. I get that, and I'm all for that. But you also got to think about it. Like, if Patrick Mahomes just doesn't know how to scout talent, maybe that's not the guy that Brett Veach wanted to pick. But since Patrick Mahomes said, I want Clyde, I want Sky Moore, who knows how much that actually took into account.
I don't remember hearing that with Sky Moore. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always felt like kind of this Mahomes GM thing was always overblown. Like Do I think he picked Clyde Edwards-Helaire? No. I think there's a very good chance the Chiefs ran it by him or asked him what he thought. But I don't think he was as involved as people like really make it out to be. I think they just kind of said that to make Mahomes look good, and then turns out Clyde was a bad player. But speaking of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, man, while we're on bad Chiefs,
let's go.
let's
go.
I don't know. I don't get the fascination, man. They gave like an entire drive to him today, and he had 3 carries for 4 yards, which is 1.3 yards per carry. Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the season has 28 carries for 93 yards, which is 3.3 yards per carry. He's not good. I don't like. We have been on this train for the longest time, Michael. Like, what is he doing to deserve all these snaps? Like, why is he being thrusted into the game by the Kansas City Chiefs and like given these drives where it's made all about him? Because like Clyde is a drive killer, man. Like anytime the team is giving him the ball, like it's killing these drives. He sucks. Like he's not explosive. He doesn't do anything well. I'm tired of the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing. Like, why does this team keep trotting him out there? Why? I'm done with it.
It makes no sense because I think I tweeted this out. Like, he has had the longest leash of a player that I can think of in recent memory.
Yeah.
I don't think he should have made this team. Point blank.
Michael Pirine should be on this team. He
wasn't better than either of Deneric Prince or LaMichael Pirine. Yet he's on this team because he was a first-round draft pick. And I almost hate, just talking about him all the time because it's always negative. It's never positive, but he's doing it to himself. Like when we hand off the ball to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's getting 1 yard running into our offensive line and just going down. There is no, a move after the initial hit, or he's not making a guy miss. He is just running into a wall and falling down. So there's no vision, which, I mean, he's 5'8", so of course there's no vision. But it's so tough because it's a football politics thing, Josh. It is because he was a first-round draft pick. Somebody in the front office is trying to see some shred of return on that investment. But, in business, you got to know when to cut your losses, and to sell stock, sell the Clyde Edwards-Helaire stock. It's done.
The only explanation that would justify giving Clyde Edwards-Helaire all these snaps is that you're aware of Jerick McKinnon's age and you're trying to save him for the postseason. You don't want to run him a bunch. That's the only explanation that makes sense as to why CEH is getting so many snaps. And even then, I'm not really sure if it's a good justification just because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is that much of a negative for this offense.
Yeah, he's just it's so tough because, like you said, he's a drive killer. Like you put him in the game, he doesn't do anything exceptionally well. He can't block. He has terrible vision. He's not fast. He doesn't make guys miss. What is he on the field for? It's almost like he's almost getting coach's son treatment. And I hate it because we see what an elite running back in Isaiah Pacheco does with the very same offensive line and the very same play calling. You're seeing one side do substantially better than the other side, but yet the side that's not doing well is getting just about as much of a sample size as the guy that has been shocking everybody and blowing everybody, by surprise, because he's just been much better running back than the other guy. But it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. While we're on the running game, though, looking at it from a positive aspect, Isaiah Pacheco, I know the box score doesn't really show it. 16 carries for 55 yards. That's 3.4 yards per carry. I thought he actually did a pretty nice job on a lot of plays that the blocking just wasn't very good. And he was turning those plays into 3 or 4 or 5 yard gains when, if that was Clyde getting the ball, 1 or 2 yards.
Yeah, and that's why it sucks because it almost
Checo was running like an angry man today. I feel bad that the box score is what it is because people are going to think that he wasn't very good, but I'm telling you, man, like he was running very well out there today, and I thought the blocking was subpar, and he still made do with it.
Pacheco is such a great talent for this Chiefs team to have because on 3rd and short, they didn't get cute. They handed the ball off. And I know there was one 3rd and short where they didn't end up getting it, but they tried it on that first 3rd and short, and Pacheco got like 6 yards or something crazy like that. So that is Andy starting to trust the guys that he's got, starting to trust that running game. And I think the Chiefs are going to be able to run the ball on 3rd and short and 4th down, and they're going to be comfortable with Pacheco getting those yards. They did have some weird play, though, where they direct snapped it to, I think, Kadarius Toney, and he got 1
Toney.
yard. That's the kind of stuff that I could go without seeing.
Yeah, and like I like the idea, but the blocking was bad on that play. There was nowhere for Kadarius Toney to go. That's not even on Toney. But I do like getting creative, finding creative ways to get Kadarius Toney the ball, because I've said it over and over again, the ability to make guys miss is very special. But, you know, the short yardage offense also came back up today as an issue. And also, I was very disappointed in Andy Reid at the end of the game there on 4th and 1 midfield. You get a first down, the game is over, and they decided to punt back to the Vikings to let them back in the game. Because you're at like the 50-yard line, I want to say. If you don't go for it, or if you go for it and you don't get it, Vikings take over at the 50, and at worst, they have a chance to tie the game up, or they tie the game up. If you don't go for it, you punt it back to the Vikings, and they have to make up the difference of 20 or 30 yards, which they did, and they had a chance to tie the game. But of course, the Chiefs got the stop. And I also thought it was really weak when Andy faked like he was going to go for it and then just let the play clock run out and took the delay of game. Like, it's like, come on, man. Like, I would have liked to see them run a play there, because regardless, I would have been still pretty confident that the Chiefs win this game. But it's like, if you get the first down there, the game is over. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I just don't take the ball out of your best player's hands. And they seem to do that a lot more than they should. They did that in that Lions game in week 1, too. Not the 4th and 25 that we think about, but there was like a 3rd and short.
Yeah, I remember we discussed it.
And they just punted the ball. Just let Patrick Mahomes do what Patrick Mahomes does best, and that is convert. And I just would like to see Andy have a little bit more trust in the best quarterback on the planet, and not give the ball back to their team, because I understand our defense is good, great, some would say, but why put that unnecessary pressure when you could just win the game outright and not even have to let the defense, see if they have to stop them?
Yeah, I just would have liked to see Andy be a little bit more aggressive. Of course, penalties kind of killed the Chiefs today a little bit too. They had 10 penalties for 86 yards. That number needs to come down. Patrick Mahomes was 31 of 41 for 281 yards and 2 touchdowns. A solid game from him, but you definitely felt like there was quite a few throws from him where he just looked off, did not look like his usual self, underthrowing a lot of receivers still, kind of like we saw against the Jets. And of course, the Jets were able to turn that into a couple interceptions. They got lucky against the Vikings today that you didn't throw an interception, but Mahomes missed on quite a few throws that would have gone for substantial gains.
Yeah, that's got to be a wide receiver problem. Not necessarily the wide receiver.
The wide receivers are part of it.
It's just that lack of trust and communication and the timing. The timing is completely off, and I think that's why balls are being underthrown. Not necessarily because the wide receivers are running the wrong route, but I mean, it's a timing thing, and clearly they don't have the correct timing.
Yeah, the receivers are definitely part of it. We knew that with this young receiver core, even though, we expected better of them, and we haven't exactly been fond of their performance so far this year, we have to acknowledge that it was always going to take time with these guys because all of them are so young and all that. But, we can still criticize them when they play bad, because that's what it is. So the receivers they weren't great. And then you almost had a nightmare scenario there when Kelsey got injured. He sustained a low ankle injury right there towards the end of the first half. And he slipped on the turf, and right then and there, everyone kind of, even the commentators, were kind of like, "Oh man, like it looked like he got hurt," and all of a sudden, everyone's and Chiefs Kingdom, all their hearts drop. They're like, "Oh God, this is the worst thing. Like this can't happen," and this is why. And I saw this tweeted out a bunch right after. It's like, this is why we asked for the Kansas City Chiefs to acquire a veteran pass catcher in the offseason that is a viable option, because if Kelsey gets hurt, this whole thing goes to shit. And we're very close to facing that reality today, had that injury been worse than it was. And another thing, this is now the second time this year Travis Kelsey has had a significant injury. He had the whatchamacallit, the bone
Hyperextended knee.
bruise. Yeah, at the beginning of the season, the injuries are starting to creep up. We've said it for several weeks now, Michael. He's starting to look like a 34-year-old tight end. And the responsibility that they've laid on his shoulders this year is unfair. And it's quite honestly malpractice from the front office to not give Patrick Mahomes somebody else.
Yeah, because opposing defenses, when they find out that they only have to sell out to stop Travis Kelsey, it's a lot easier on them. And going back to that injury, I thought the worst. A non-contact injury on turf.
Yeah.
My brain goes, something bad just happened. And to see him like get up and like try to like walk it off / run it off, and it's like that helmet throw on the sideline, I was like, oh, this guy just tore his Achilles, or tore something. But the fact that he was only out like 10 minutes, went back to the locker room, got x-rayed, came back out, and was still productive pass catcher on this team. He had a touchdown catch after getting injured. Like, it's amazing that Travis Kelsey can do this at 34 years old, but it's also kind of sad that he has to do this at 34 years old, because without Travis Kelsey, who was damn near playing on one leg today, you don't win this game. And I think that not a good thing that Travis Kelsey got hurt, but hopefully some of these other wide receivers are like, oh, shoot, like now we have to step up, because, the guy that is our leader, so to speak, isn't here. And I think that it kind of gave us a taste of what life would be like without Travis Kelsey, because I did not expect him to play in this game after getting injured. And I think that this hopefully was a wake-up call, maybe the Chiefs front office, the wide receivers, that we're going to have to step up to make plays, because we can't just do this to Travis Kelsey week in and week out at his age.
Yeah, but he did go out there and he was a warrior. He ended up with 10 catches for 67 yards, had a touchdown in the second half after the injury. And it was one of those classic Mahomes-Kelsey plays where they just kind of understand each other, and Kelsey just goes out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was just kind of a freelance route. He just went to go find the soft spot in the zone coverage, sat down, and was like, hey, Mahomes, I'm open. And then there you go, touchdown. And that's all the Chiefs needed to win this game. And I feel like even though the offense, we feel like they underperformed today, because I definitely feel like this should have been like a 300-yard passing game, 30-plus points scored type of game for this offense against the Vikings defense. And even though it wasn't, they did enough to win against another team where, and this is where we can kind of get into the defense, the Vikings offense is one of the more explosive in the league. Obviously, you have Justin Jefferson to go up against, who's probably the best receiver in the NFL. Tyreek Hill, him and Tyreek Hill are kind of 1A, 1B. But, it's always a tough matchup. Jordan Addison today, too, who actually made quite a few plays for the Vikings, their rookie receiver. They got a pretty good offense over there in Minnesota. So to outscore them today is still an accomplishment. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the defense, because they had a pretty good performance for the most part. If there was one thing that I were to complain about, the lack of pass rush was very evident, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But I got to applaud these defensive backs for holding Justin Jefferson to, what was it? 3 catches for 28 yards. Completely shut him down, McDuffie and Snead. They both took turns covering him today, and he was very quiet. Jordan Addison had 6 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. He was really the only guy to really do a bunch of damage. TJ Hawkinson, maybe. He had 5 catches for 51 yards, but Overall, I thought the secondary, the pass defense did very well. The rush defense also held the Vikings to just 70 yards rushing. But again, if there was one area where I were to criticize them, it's the pass rush. Kirk Cousins kind of was able to sit back there all day. 29 of 47 for 284 yards and 2 touchdowns. But they did get the clutch sack from Mike Dan at the end to end the game. But what are your initial thoughts on the defense's performance today?
Honestly, for me, I don't have a problem necessarily with the pass rush. They could have been better, but I think the defensive backs were so incredibly good that you were able to have a day where you didn't have the best pass rush. I was really blown away by our defensive backs, and specifically L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie. I thought our linebackers were really good again, even without Nick Bolton, and that is something that is such a good sign. My only area of critique with the defense was the penalties they gave up and all those yards, because one of those Vikings touchdown drives is completely because you gave them so many free yards in penalties. You don't make those mistakes. I mean, you only give up maybe 13 points instead of 20. So I do think the penalties remain to be killer, but that's for both the defense and the offense. But overall, I mean, maybe I'm just not as harsh on the defense because I know what a bad defense looks like, and I just know this isn't a bad defense. But I mean, no, I think our rush defense is good. The pass rush has shown before this week that they are really good, and the secondary continues to show that they have the pieces to be a really good unit. So yeah, I think that the pass rush could have been better, but all things considered, I think this defense, I don't really have any complaints.
Yeah, I think they've maybe regressed since week 1, week 2, but those were very dominant performances. And I mean, I have high hopes for the Chiefs defense this year, high expectations, especially based on what we've seen through the first few weeks. But it's not like they're going to be able to hold every single team to 10 points every single week. They did a fine job today. I mean, their backs were kind of put up against the wall because of the offense, and they didn't let the Vikings ever really take control of the game. They did enough. Again, pass rush. A little disappointed in them. You almost kind of, because this is the second straight week now where the pass rush has kind of been a non-factor. It was a non-factor against the Jets. The first couple weeks, they looked awesome. And you almost kind of wonder if that's a fluke now, because I was ready to say, you know what, like, maybe we don't need a veteran addition. Maybe instead of Charles Omenihu being viewed as a luxury for this pass rush, he's the boost that they needed instead, because they're not getting it done without him. But I mean, the pass rush, kind of similar to the wide receivers, is still relatively young, and they have some stuff to figure out. I feel like Felix Anudike-Uzomah will start to come along later in the season, because one thing I would like to point out about him, because he hasn't even recorded his first sack yet, he started out kind of slow. I will point out, I remember George Karlaftis last year for his rookie season had like 1 sack in the first 6 weeks, and then finished the year with 6.5 sacks. So it's not like it's too late for him to make an impact. George Karlaftis as well. He's a guy we've talked about on here. We talked about him in Kingdom Crew, how he's getting a lot of these pressures, but he's just not turning them into sacks yet. And it feels like eventually at some point those sacks got to start coming for him.
Oh, yeah, they definitely will. And luckily for the pass rush, Omenihu is that saving grace, and the wide receivers don't have that saving grace. It's not like we're going to get a veteran wide receiver as a late addition, like coming off of like injury or suspension. No, we don't have that. We're kind of stuck with the guys that we have. But I do like this defense a lot. I think that 20 points to this Vikings offense. This Vikings offense is really good. Like, they are a very good unit with a lot of talent in that wide receiver group, and their running back,
Addison, Jefferson,
those guys. And Madison, their running back, like, they were kind of able to stop him too. So like, I really do like how the Chiefs defense played against a unit that is very formidable. I don't know where they ranked this year in offense, but last year they're towards the top of the league.
Yeah, they're like top 10 this year. I think I looked at the numbers prior to our Kingdom Crew episode, and they were up there with like the Detroit Lions. So, I mean, it's one of the better offenses in the league this year. Always kind of will be, as long as they have the pass catchers that they do. I'm kind of lukewarm on Kirk Cousins, but he is a guy where if you can't get pressure on him, he is going to sit back there and he's going to dice you up a little bit. And he didn't exactly do that, but you got to be able to get pressure on him. We weren't able to get pressure on him today without blitzing. And hopefully that's something that gets better when Charles Omenihu returns. I saw something today about Frank Clark. I guess, or Ian Rappaport actually put out an article saying that Frank Clark could be up for trade from the Denver Broncos. And, I saw a lot of Chiefs fans commenting under Frank Clark's latest tweet saying, come back to KC and all this stuff. And I just got to say, man, please do not go back to Frank Clark. I really do not want to make it look like we're crawling back to Frank Clark. I thought I was done having Frank Clark on my football team. I do not want to go through that experience again. Like, that would be such, like, and here's the thing. I'm afraid of it happening too. Like, it seems like the Chiefs thing to do. It seems like a Brett Veach type of move to bring Frank Clark back into this pass rushing room. But I thought I was done with them. It's like, I can't get him out of my life, man. Kind of like Clyde.
Yeah, I was going to say, what if we just traded Clyde for Clark straight up? Well, would that be a worthy trade? Honestly, I might take Clyde not being on this team for Clark coming back, but no, I agree with you. I don't want Clark on this team. Omenihu is able to do.
Omenihu's better. Omenihu's an upgrade.
Yeah,
because like here's the thing: if you're bringing Frank Clark, yeah, that too. Like if you're bringing in Frank Clark, it just doesn't really make any sense because you're blocking the young guys from getting snaps at that point.
Yeah,
like you've invested too much.
And who's saying that Clark's better than the young guys right now?
Yeah, like he hasn't done anything in Denver this year. Denver fans hate him. You go look up Frank Clark on Twitter. Like they do not like him. They think he's terrible.
Welcome to the club, boys. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, for sure. I also forgot to mention something too. Something that I saw like some Chiefs fans talking about. This had to do with the offense, but like MVS. I saw a bunch of people, and I know he kind of had a mishap there today. They're like, MVS, like, get him off my team. Like, he's not good. Why are we paying this guy $11 million per year? I have been in this boat for a very long time. In a market where wide receivers are making $30+ million a year, $11 million a year for a guy that consistently gives you 500 to 600 receiving yards and a few touchdowns every single year is a very fair deal. That is a very good deal. The problem, complaining about MVS, you're complaining about the wrong receiver. And the reason is because MVS is not a wide receiver one, but he's kind of become the wide receiver one by default because the Chiefs didn't get one. That's on the Kansas City Chiefs, not MVS. He's not a wide receiver one, but he's not going to be as effective if you're trying to thrust him into this role of being your most experienced wide receiver, of being your best wide receiver. Because a lot of people looked at this wide receiver room and they're like, MVS is kind of the only proven guy in it. And, I feel like a lot of the criticism towards MVS is just a little unfair because it's not really his fault that he's being forced to play in this role.
Yeah, MVS on a good team like the Chiefs should be like the 4th or 5th option, realistically. But since the Chiefs have done a not so good job of finding a number 1 wide receiver, or even a number 2 wide receiver, he's kind of had to play the second role where he's not better than Travis Kelce, but he's got to be their leading receiving option. And I completely understand the criticism of that play earlier today where he just stopped running his route. I get that. But I also understand, and I couldn't agree with your point more, do you know how much wide receivers are getting paid nowadays? And what they were able to get MVS for, I mean, you really can't get a better bargain.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've got my problems with MVS, but I also understand that, I don't have the expectation that.
Yeah, what expectations do people have for him? Like, honestly,
too high. Chiefs fans have too high expectations for basically everybody, and MVS is no exception. I mean, MVS realistically should be the Chiefs' 3rd best wide receiver, but he kind of has to be their 1st best wide receiver because they don't have anybody else. But I've never come at the mindset of, I think MVS is our number 1 wide receiver or even our number 2 wide receiver. I think if you had that expectation, no wonder you're disappointed because he was never even brought in to be that.
Yeah, like it's just it's unfair to him. And if you brought in somebody that was a wide receiver one material, then I feel like MVS would be a lot more productive. There wouldn't be as much attention on him, or defenses would have more to worry about, and MVS is able to get open because of that. But I just had to get that in there because I saw that today, and I was just kind of like, why is MVS the guy we're complaining about? Like, I understand, like you said, being upset with the play where he kind of stopped running his route, and him and Mahomes seemed to be not on the same page. But yeah, so back to the defense though. They did a pretty good job, I think, holding the Minnesota Vikings to 20 points. I feel like this defense still has the potential to be a top 5 or top 10, top 5 defense this year, somewhere in that range. Especially when they get Omenihu back and they get Nick Bolton, because like you said, it's been a few weeks without Nick Bolton. And I know people have their gripes with Bolton, but he is very important to this defense because he is the green dot, helps them get lined up. Very smart, good processor, and helps with the pre-snap adjustments. And that's an aspect where people are not understanding that Nick Bolton needs to be out there for this team, for this defense, because so far the sample size we've seen without Nick Bolton, this defense is worse without him.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, they're definitely worse without Nick Bolton. They're not completely trash without Nick Bolton, but
Yeah, right.
you'd be not very intelligent to say that Nick Bolton being gone hasn't had any impact on this defense whatsoever. Really quickly, I kind of wanted to bring up the final, I guess, series of the game.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Okay,
Kind of the
do you want to?
controversial ending.
Yeah, why don't we get into that?
So obviously, unless you didn't watch the game, on fourth down, Kirk Cousins targeted. It was Addison, wasn't it?
I
I'm forgetting who he
believe.
was. I think it was Jordan Addison, but regardless, Vikings wide receiver being guarded by L'Jarius Sneed. Kirk Cousins throws it. They call pass interference on L'Jarius Sneed. Then they pick up the flag, decide it's not a pass interference. Chiefs get the ball. Game is pretty much over. And a lot of people, I think the Vikings got the ball one more time after that. The last desperation drive where they tried to chuck a Hail Mary, and then Mike Dana got the sack. But anyway, that was kind of the defensive stand that ended the game, or that won the game for the Chiefs. And of course, they picked up the flag, and a lot of people were complaining on Twitter, like, "Oh my God, Chiefs are getting the refs help again," and all this stuff. And it's just like, did you see the pass? It ended up like 20 yards away from the wide receiver. Like, it was nowhere close. It was an uncatchable pass, and you can't call a pass interference on a ball that wasn't catchable. And yes, L'Jarius Sneed was kind of touching the guy and was, guarding him as if the ball was coming on that vertical route. And as the wide receiver, you can't say pass interference, or if, for the people that think it was pass interference, one, it was uncatchable. Two, Sneed is still allowed to guard the guy. What is he supposed to do? Let the wide receiver just run to the ball because he's afraid of getting pass interference? Like, the wide receiver also isn't allowed to just run through L'Jarius Sneed to get the pass either. That's how the wide receiver defensive back matchup works in that scenario. And then of course and I do get this a little bit, this frustration about L'Jarius Sneed taking his helmet off after the play, because technically that is a penalty. But it's also one that I don't really see called, even though they say it's against the rules. Because I remember a few years ago, if you can remember that Chargers game during the COVID season, where Patrick Mahomes launched a touchdown to Tyreek Hill against the Chargers. It was like week 3, I think, in Los Angeles. Tyreek Hill took his helmet off, and they did not call it. I also think Tyreek Hill took his helmet off against the Dolphins, or for the Dolphins just a couple weeks ago. Against the Broncos, they did not call that either. So it's technically against the rules. I don't really see it called that often, though, and I think you're kind of grasping at straws, hoping for the refs to throw a flag, especially the way, because what the referees don't want is a player like taking his helmet and then chucking it or something like that in celebration. You're not allowed to do that, but that's not really what Sneed did. He took it off as like, hold on, we need to talk about this, and then they're like, hey man, put your helmet back on. You can't do that. So I don't really think it was worthy of a flag, not based on how they've called it in the past.
I think it was definitely not PI. I think anyone that thought it was PI would have been very weak, because A, it was not catchable. B, there was never like there was contact, but there wasn't the amount of contact that warranted, the Vikings wide receiver from not catching the football. But also the football was like 5 to 10 yards away from the intended receiver. So not really something that I think you could complain about. I do get how there are people upset about the L'Jarius Sneed taking his helmet off because I'm not trying, but when you said that I haven't seen it called, I saw it called earlier today. TJ Watt had a sack against the Ravens that ended the game, and he took his helmet off, but he also ended the game, and they ended up getting him for, I think, unsportsmanlike conduct. But then again, it doesn't matter because the Vikings.
That's what I'm saying is he took it off in celebration essentially, and that's what they don't want. That's not what Sneed was doing.
True, but also doesn't matter. The Vikings don't get the ball back. It's a turnover on downs. So even then, they got the ball back again and had a chance to win or tie the game, I guess. But they didn't do anything about it. And we're going to have to hear about how the game is rigged for the Chiefs and this and this and this. But, man, it's just they got the ball back. They had a chance to go down and tie the game, and they didn't. Now, granted, they didn't have any time, but –
well, I do have to say I'm glad that the Chiefs were able to keep them out of the end zone because I guarantee had they scored a touchdown, they were going to go for 2 and try to go for the win. You knew it was coming. I felt like they were going to go for 2 and go for the win. But can we talk about the Vikings head coach, O'Connell, wasting all 3 timeouts before the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter? And really that was the reason they had they would have had, if they kept, even 1 or 2 of their timeouts, they would have had a much better chance of tying that game up or winning that game. But instead, they had no timeouts because they wasted all of them.
I can't remember how they lost their first timeout, but I remember they lost their second one because Travis Kelce made an incredible catch, clearly a catch, but they tried to make the case that there was a fumble.
Bad challenge.
They challenged it. It was a terrible challenge. They lost a timeout. And then that third timeout, their final timeout that they lost, was because their guys just weren't lined up properly. And so it sucks, I guess, but your team was undisciplined and you lost all your timeouts. So we could always play this game. The Chiefs were up, though. And listen, let's just say that the Vikings did score there. They called PI on Sneed. They scored there. The Chiefs would have probably gotten into field goal range and won the game. But then again, I hate playing the what-if game because who knows what would have happened. But Chiefs won this game. Obviously, there's controversy because the Chiefs won a close game. But I just think out of all the things to be upset about, it wasn't PI. And the one thing that you have a legitimate gripe about wouldn't have given you the ball back.
Right. I do want to address this one comment from Marlon in a second, but I need to address this one first. First timeout, I think they called before the half. You must be mistaken, Marlon, because you get 3 timeouts for each half. So it couldn't have been before the half. But I wanted to talk about this. Eric said, discuss ML football. Do you know the ML football account, Michael?
No. What?
It's one of those. It's like you've probably seen it before. But there's a few accounts. There's a few accounts like it. ML football, JPA football. They're kind of like Dov Kleeman clones, if you know who Dov Kleeman is, like the notorious Chiefs hater. Basically, anytime they tweeted about the L'Jarius Sneed play, and they tweeted out a video, and they were like, "Oh wow, look at this." They missed a huge PI call on L'Jarius Sneed, and then they didn't call his helmet being off. And it's like, first of all, there was no PI. We covered that already. But it's just hilarious to see these accounts that are all engagement farming off of hating on the Chiefs. And they're all the same. They all steal videos. They steal articles from other people and then post the reports as their own and all this stuff. Same thing Dov Kleeman does. I'm not even sure who Dov Kleeman is or what he works for or how he's considered an NFL insider or anything like that. But he has like these little clone accounts, JPA football, ML football, and they tweet all these stupid headlines and the engagement farm off of hating on the Chiefs and saying that the refs helped them win games. But it's kind of funny.
They hate us because they ain't us, Josh. It's the same thing every week. I would love to know the over or under on how many games are rigged for the Chiefs by the end of the year. We've already got 2 of them. 2 of them in 2 weeks too. So who knows what next week has in store?
Yeah. But I gotta address this comment. So is Dave Toub on the hot seat? No, he's not on the hot seat because Andy's too loyal to his assistants. Dave Toub will never not have a job here unless he retires or leaves on his own. Because Dave Toub, I've had my gripes with Dave Toub over the last few years. Like his special teams units have not been very good. And I know the reason you say that is because the Chiefs allowed that fake punt. It was a very obvious fake punt that was coming. You could tell by the way they were lined up and all that, but you can't really. I'm pretty sure the Chiefs still had their defense out on the field, not their special teams. So it's not technically a Dave Toub thing. But that was a bad allowing that fake to convert because the Vikings player that got the ball on that kind of slipped up a little bit and was stuck behind his blocker for like a good 2 or 3 seconds, and not a single Chiefs player even close to making a tackle attempt. But it doesn't matter because we won. But yeah, that was an ugly play.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Dave Toub's here as long as he wants to be. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of crazy how we like talk about certain things wanting to change, but they always find a way to win regardless of the things that we have complaints about.
Yeah, for sure. But I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I think we broke down this game quite well. Chiefs win 27-20, escape Minnesota with a win, and then of course it's a quick turnaround because they play the Broncos on Thursday Night Football, don't they?
They do, and that game's at Arrowhead.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be a fun one. The Broncos are not very good. The Chiefs should win that game by double digits, but yeah, we'll see what happens because I'm waiting for it to happen for this offense. We haven't really seen a dominant performance from them yet, and I feel like it's got to be coming at some point. Even though I'm not super high on these wide receivers right now, a team like the Broncos, that's a game you gotta do something. You gotta show something.
Well, they beat the break out of the Bears, but I mean, you'd like to see the teams that are so clearly below you really beat down. The Broncos are a mess, and we'll probably talk about it on the Kingdom Crew this week. The Broncos are screwed for the future. I cannot imagine giving up the assets that they did to acquire a quarterback that doesn't even have his wide receiver's phone number and a coach that doesn't like bucket hats. So, you know.
Well, I was watching that game on Red Zone while I was watching the Chiefs, and the Broncos are just hilarious, man, because it looked like they might be winning the game, and then Russell Wilson turns it over, gets the ball poked out, Jets run it back for a touchdown. Just a hilarious way to lose. And also, there was a few funny plays before that. One of which they tried to run a double reverse, and the reverse on the second one got thrown over the Broncos guy's head, and I think they nearly turned it over. Just hilarious football team. Chiefs should blow them out.
They should, and I'll be there. It's gonna be electric. I love playing the Broncos, especially at home, because I hate the Broncos, and so it's just so much fun to watch this team just beat up on the Broncos every year. And man, put me out at wide receiver. We probably have a good chance to win.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I'd like to see that. I feel like you could produce more than Sky Moore.
Listen, okay, I'm telling you what. I guarantee you, to whoever's watching this video, that I can have the same level of production as Clyde Edwards-Helaire did today if you gave me the same.
Oh rep. Yeah,
I can get a yard. Give me a yard. I'm bigger than Clyde. I think I weigh more, and I'm taller. So
you can run behind. Joe Tooney and Creed Humphrey and fall forward for a yard.
Oh yeah,
we could do that.
My ribs would be broken, but listen, I would find a way to get it done.
I believe you. I would like to see it. I mean, you're going to be at that game, right?
Yeah, I will be, and it's going to be.
Maybe you could sneak onto the field.
Honestly, I'll find some pads somewhere.
That would be hilarious. But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. So I appreciate y'all joining us tonight. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com. And then, of course, Michael before we sign off, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube. That's at KC Sports Report. We just got done with a Bleacher Report live stream, so you can check that out on my YouTube channel. I post it there, but it's also on the Bleacher Report mobile app. Then Instagram and Twitter is at the Michael Darcy.
There you have it. And all that's down in the description already. I pretty much just copied and pasted our description from Kingdom Crew. So yeah, it's down there, but you guys go ahead and check him out. We're going to go ahead and sign off. We appreciate y'all joining, and go Chiefs.